CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
Well, the roads around the capital region may be about to become a little less traveled, at least by buses. The union representing BC Transit drivers and mechanics in Greater Victoria has voted overwhelmingly in favour of going on strike. The Canadian Auto Workers Union represents 650 BC Transit drivers and mechanics. Talks between the two sides have been going on since last May, but broke off last week. 98% of members have now voted in favour of job action, but the union says that would be a last resort. There's no strike planned right now, and talks will resume with BC Transit tomorrow.
Strike is a last option for us, any form of job action. We want to sit there and negotiate a fair collective agreement with BC Transit, and we believe that we were able to do that without any form of job action.
BC Transit says the union's wage demands cannot be met. The union says it received an offer that was less than what the province offered the BC GEU, 3.5% over 2 years. Well, if your daily commute involves sitting in rush hour traffic in downtown Victoria, hold tight. There are changes around the corner. The Victoria Regional Transit Commission has set a one-year deadline to have rush hour and bus-only lanes up and down Douglas Street. The Commission says those dedicated lanes will operate during the morning and evening to help alleviate congestion. The Commission hopes that those lanes will be up and running for buses only by next September. Well, if you travel to the U.S. to do your shopping, there's one store you will not have to go to Seattle to visit pretty soon. Nordstrom is coming to Canada, taking over and refurbishing a downtown Vancouver store that many consider to be an eyesore. Nordstrom will set up shop in 4 locations across the country. In addition to the old Sears store at Pacific Centre in downtown Vancouver, Nordstrom will open former Sears locations in Toronto, Ottawa and Calgary. Canadian consumers who like Nordstrom will be able to browse those racks beginning in the fall of 2014. Well, the wax heads have been in storage for years, and now an iconic Victoria attraction is prairie-bound. The Royal London Wax Museum is moving to Regina. The museum closed its doors in 2010 after spending 50 years in downtown Victoria. The attraction was forced to close because the old CPR steamship building that was refurbished needed expensive seismic upgrades, and the museum owner couldn't afford to pay for it. He spent the last 2 years searching for a new location and has finally found one.
And of all the places we visited and studied and looked at, the one that seems to make the most sense for us at the moment is Regina. That's the one that made the best first impression. The royalty scene worked very well for Victoria because of its reputation as a little bit of Old England. Regina will probably, that theme will also work, but probably to a lesser extent, because Regina is also acknowledges the British monarchy favorably.
The museum's former home is still under renovation. New tenants will include a Robert Bateman gallery, retail stores, and a pub-style restaurant. A former provincial finance minister and Greater Victoria business owner says she would like to take a run at federal politics. Elizabeth Cull will seek the New Democratic Party nomination to run in the federal riding in Victoria. She talked about that today on our radio partner, CFAX 1070. Cull served as Deputy Premier and Finance Minister as well as Minister of Health in the Mike Harcourt NDP government in the 90s. She also is a business owner in Victoria and Oak Bay. The Victoria seat, which has been held for the past 5 years by the NDP, became vacant when NDP MP Denise Savoy resigned in August for reasons of health. Meantime, a law professor at UVic is also setting his sights on Savoy's seat. Professor Donald Galloway announced today he'll throw his name into the ring to become the Green Party's next candidate in the upcoming by-election. Galloway has practiced law for more than 20 years in Victoria and is also an advocate of refugee and immigrant rights in Canada.
I'll take my lead from Elizabeth, who is trying to bring people in politics together. Rather than sniping and bickering at each other, she is the person who has actually told us that the political realm should be about discovering the truth. And I think I'm going to follow that lead.
The thought of having someone working side by side with me who knows laws and parliamentary procedure and advocates for human rights is a perfect balance to my work on behalf of the environment, and he, like I did when I first got elected, can hit the ground running.
The by-election in Victoria will be called within 6 months by Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Well, businesses in Victoria are learning how to reduce their energy consumption and help cut down on the city's carbon footprint while they're at it. Cut the Carbon seminars are being held, designed to help people share their ideas on how to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, whether it's installing energy-efficient windows, reducing heating and air conditioning by just a few degrees, or taking the bus instead of your car. Victoria's mayor says every little bit helps.
The larger picture is we need to be aware of what's happening with climate. Not only how can we reduce our impact, but recognize that we're going to have an adaptation strategy. It's changing. So for us in the city, you know, when we have to worry about pipes to take around bigger stormwater, when we have to worry about the impact of storms on the Dallas Road bluffs and cliffs and account for that, it just makes good sense to do this investment in our businesses that help us reduce our overall impact on the greenhouse gas emissions that we have.
A new report by the Sierra Club says BC released 62 million tons of pollution in 2010. That does not count carbon from the forests and fossil fuel exports. It says the pollution would be 4 times more if exported products were included. The Environment Ministry says international agreements do not require the province to report emissions that are beyond its control. A coalition of 10 First Nations on BC's north and central coasts has declared its own moratorium after years of urging the province to put a ban on the hunting of bears for trophies. The coalition admits that enforcing the ban will be difficult because trophy hunting is legal in BC. The province says the move is a disappointment because the hunting industry generates nearly $350 million a year for the province. The First Nations say the bear is an important part of their heritage. They want to stop hunters and poachers who take valuable bear parts and then leave the carcasses in the woods to rot.
The division comes as the respect that the First Nations have for the bear and its life, making full use of the hide and the claws, the teeth, even the meat. When the trophy hunters and the resident hunters are here, they're here only for the claws and for the teeth and for the skin, and they generally leave the carcass lying where it's shot.
The province says it's open to talking to the First Nations Coalition about the issue, but it will not commit to helping enforce a ban on bear trophy hunting. And this isn't something that Metro Vancouver commuters see every day, but they sure did today. A bear wandering near a busy urban street. Police used their patrol cars to help guide the bear safely back into a forested area. The lead investigator into the suicide of a Canadian soldier says it was the Alberta Medical Examiner's decision to allow Stuart Langridge's body to hang for 90 minutes after it was discovered. The sergeant told the public inquiry that the coroner was in charge and military police were only there to conduct a parallel investigation to rule out foul play. The Military Police Complaints Commission is examining a claim by Langridge's parents, who live in Victoria, that the investigation into his suicide in 2008 was biased. The lead investigator also made note that the decision to withhold Langridge's suicide note from his grieving family was a judgment call and not an attempt to protect the Canadian Forces from embarrassment. That inquiry continues.
Let me see what spring is like on you.
Diana Krall covering the Sinatra classic Fly Me to the Moon, providing an especially fitting song for the memorial to Neil Armstrong today as friends and family gathered to say goodbye to the U.S. astronaut. More than 1,000 people packed Washington's National Cathedral for the public memorial service. The first man on the moon died last month from complications of heart surgery. Neil Armstrong was 82. RG Properties has lost an appeal of a liquor license suspension at the Save On Foods Memorial Centre. Our radio partner CFAX 1070 reports tonight that the BC Court of Appeal has upheld the suspension to be served over 10 business days, not 10 consecutive calendar days, as RG Properties had wanted. The BC Liquor Control and Licensing Branch imposed that suspension after Victoria Police conducted a routine patrol at the arena in the fall of 2007 and found there were minors drinking alcohol in the arena at a Salmon Kings game. No date for the suspension to be served has been set. Well, some very brave Vancouver Islanders took a giant leap of faith today while taking the plunge for a very good cause. Fearless volunteers were suiting up to drop a spine-tingling 13 stories today. The participants dressed up as the favorite superhero before rappelling down the side of the CIBC building for the Easter Seals 7th Annual Drop Zone. That fundraiser helps raise money for the Easter Seals House while sending disabled children to Camp Shawnigan.
A camp where kids can go and have a week at camp, and it's fully paid for. Parents don't pay anything at all, and it's specially set up for children with assorted disabilities. And we also run Easter Seal House, which is a house where people who live outside of Victoria can stay when their children are in need of medical assistance and they have to travel.
Our very own Jordan Cunningham tested his fear of heights this afternoon. We caught up with Jordan before the big drop, sporting his favorite pinstripes and his brave face.
I don't care how strong your ropes are. when you're stepping backwards off a 13-story building with full trust in something else, it's a little different.
The Easter Seals drop zone has raised a lot of money in past years. They are still tallying up what they have raised this year. The federal government also appears to be tightening its belt, with hundreds of civil servants learning that they might soon find themselves out of a job. Nearly 1,500 employees at Human Resources and Social Development Canada got word today that their jobs may be in danger, and another 149 employees of the RCMP were told their jobs may disappear. Most of those affected are in central Canada and in the Ottawa region. This evening, a tree faller has been killed at a remote worksite near Port Alice. The man was struck by a tree on the job earlier today. RCMP have secured the scene, but it'll be tomorrow before WorkSafe BC and the coroner are able to travel to the remote site. CTV's Jet Bazzi joins us now live from Nanaimo with the latest on the story. Jet.
Hudson, it's another workplace tragedy. A logger working in a camp near Port Alice has died. A man working at Gooding Cove near Port Alice has been struck down by a tree. He was an employee of Lamar Lake Logging. WorkSafe BC's Megan Johnson has told CTV News that safety officers and investigators have been dispatched to the site.
WorkSafe BC was notified about a fatality at a logging work site in the Port Alice area around midday today. Our information at this time is very preliminary, but we understand that a worker was struck by a tree at a logging work site. The employer is Lamar Lake Logging, and WorkSafe BC officers were sent to the incident scene this afternoon, and our investigators from the Fatal and Serious Incidents Investigation Division are also en route.
BC Forest Safety Council's Renald Hart says a faller's job is a dangerous one.
Yeah, you know, there's no question that with a faller there's a high degree of risk, and that's why the individuals that go into that profession receive a lot of training and a lot of support during the job in terms of block layout, regular supervision, and other support systems to help reduce the risk. But it is a job with a higher degree of risk than you would find in other occupations.
The camp where the logger died is in a remote area. There's not enough daylight left, so WorkSafe BC and the coroner's office will head up to Port Alice early in the morning. The name of the fallen logger is being held until RCMP notify next of kin. Hudson.
All right, Jet Bazzi reporting with the latest in our Nanaimo newsroom. Jet, thank you. The Regional District of Nanaimo is staying true to its roots and is protecting a popular trail in the harbour city. The RDN has made an agreement with the province to protect the trail on Mount Benson from being logged. Part of the deal includes a section of Crown land currently leased to Vancouver Island University for a woodlot, which will be maintained and improved. It'll establish the Witchcraft Lake Trail as the official route to take the climb to Mount Benson.
So the woodlot has got a lot of trails in it. It's Crown land. People go in there and bushwhack around. People have been climbing Mount Benson for a long time. We're new coming there as regional park, and so we had to pick one route. So there are other routes there. They still are there. It's up to the woodlot manager to deal with those. They're not. We're not involved with those trails, and so in some cases, you know, anything could happen. That's up to the woodlot. But this particular trail, this one will be nicely signed, and it'll be ready to take, you know, people for years to come.
A new kiosk will be added as well to the start of the trail in October. The Regional District of Nanaimo says it took more than a year to come to an agreement on this with the province.